conflict to declare?
Conflict, 9/11.
Okay.
All good.
Okay. All right, so the next item would be the adoption of the agenda. We need to make any changes. Right, so we now take a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a mover? Do we have a second? Ready for the question?
Questions?
Proceed with the vote. All those in favor of adopting this evening's agenda show their consent by saying yes. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, next one is adoption of minutes. We have two sets, so it would now take a motion to adopt the minutes from the November 15th regular meeting as presented.
For the first.
Second.
Second.
Ready for the question?
Questions?
We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of adopting the November 15th minutes show their consent by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, the next minutes are December 6th special meeting. It would now take a motion to adopt the minutes from the December 6th special meeting. We'll have a mover.
Second.
We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of adopting December 6th special meeting minutes show their consent by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Okay, questions from the public is the next one.
That's it.
Okay, do we have any questions from the floor? Next item is petitions, requests, or delegation.
No, nothing on the agenda in order.
Right. Next up is council reports, council member reports. First up is Deputy Mayor Martin.
Oh, starting things off, obviously the rink is coming along. Currently closed until tomorrow. I think hard big end. It's fortunate enough I was asked to do Rogers. So it's co-hosted by Todd 4.5. As well, just basically on the rink and everything to do with all of it. It's great to be back and advice and where to go with it. That's going to be coming out. I look forward to some events for the community. Get that right. Second thing come up is obviously as probably got this, and people have questions in regards to assessments. I just reaffirm to people in the community that we do not assess properties. This goes to Brunswick. Now on the webpage, there's a short period of time where they can test their assessment. Third thing, sombering is I'd like to just say in respect to individuals that were involved in the car accident, just down the road from here the other day. Condolences go to the past and best wishes go to those recovering. Just if I could just
On property assessments, absolutely. Jack it up. Something sometime one time, so origin were those points if ever had any questions, as long as they make information. That can matter, that's out to the those two.
Sure. Okay, Councilor Steve. Okay, Councilor Martin.
I just want to give a big shout out to Chad for doing the initiative for the rink. That's a lot of hard work and a lot of long nights and days and everything else, and he's been there for pretty much every one of them. So a big shout out to him. Tiffany, condolences for everything else for the accident. That's it.
Okay, Councilor Savoy.
no report.
Okay. So happy New Year. First regular meeting of the new year. So just a little update. There was December 6th, we had a public safety committee meeting. RCMP, AMO, Fire Marshal, Ambulance, Red Cross, Public Safety, and DTI were all represented at the meeting. Invited but unable to attend that particular meeting were representatives from the community, Heavy Power, Crime Stoppers, DNR, Search and Rescue, and the Southern Firefighters Association. The group determined at that meeting that going forward would include 911 dispatch, the fire chief, the coordinator, and the resiliency coordinator at the committee. It was decided at the meeting to focus on emergency measure plans, emergency measures plans. Many pre-existing municipalities have plans that are old and outdated, so we need to create one, but they also have some that they don't feel it probably as valid as they once were. The goal was to look at creating a regional plan that municipalities could make minor adjustments to for their own use. This would mean less work for the community, stronger plans, and working with EMO for a more robust resource list and to work as a region to share services in an emergency. So it's definitely a positive for us to look at doing it that way. More to come on that. We don't have our next meeting scheduled yet. The RCMP also gave us an update at the meeting about the quarterly report. Currently, it's by branch, and there's not a whole lot of detail that's specific to municipalities. There's a couple of things that are broken up by municipality, but it's not real clear. A lot of it is just numbers for each division. The quarterly report will be updated with the information for identified municipality for 2024, and the target is to have that for the July report. So hopefully this summer we'll see that. Council attended a conference in Fredericton for UMMB in late November. It was a great networking session with the performative classes offered. We had a chance to meet the Premier and the new Minister of Local Government, as well as hear them speak. The union is applying steady pressure for the next steps of reform to be worked on with the Finance Summit. At the conference, we also discussed and voted on motions for the union to work on. Some of the topics were cell and Wi-Fi coverage for the province. And recently they announced that UMMB and CNBA, which is Cities of New Brunswick Association, will amalgamate, and this will give us a stronger voice with the union to advocate for residents. Adding more municipalities to work as one organization. So, and finally, so this came to me probably late November, early December, chance to give a report, but shout out to Deputy Mayor Martin. In dealing with an issue for residents, I received some messages from them asking that I ensure he and the rest of council be aware of what a great job he's doing. This particular issue has led to us having to give updates to residents that they may not necessarily want to hear. The residents said the fact that he kept in touch, kept them updated, and listened to what they had to say was much appreciated. And the fact that he may not have wanted to give the updates, but did give them anyway, gave them confidence that he was doing his job. As a council, I think we'll all agree that our job is to listen and be a voice for the residents. If in doing our jobs, the residents are confident that we care, we're trying to listen, and we'll be honest regardless of the information we have to give them as a follow-up, I think it's safe to say we're headed in the right direction. So thank you to Deputy Mayor Martin for following up and doing the job the residents are proud of. Being a great example of how council wants to better. Okay, so next up is the rezoning application.
In theory, you should just like conflict. You want to go upstairs? So I uploaded the presentation to Bill's running. I just uploaded to my mean to fresh. Yes, I did it right before the meeting started. Just fresh. Actually, it should be the last item in the introduction to action. That's the presentation. It's to present. Okay.
Well, I'll have the presentation. Yeah, so I'll try to tell you what slide we're on, so we're all getting the same thing. So, good afternoon. Tonight I'm here to present Maple Hill's first rezoning request. So today's purpose is just to give an overall overview of the request. There's no decision made tonight, so we're not approving the request tonight. And I'm just going to present overall information, just details that we receive consultation. And then again, I'm going to present the next step of what is typically a rezoning, and then council will deliberate whether you want to take that motion to go to the next step or just finish the rezoning here tonight. So those are pretty much the two options. The third option would be we want more information, more before taking a resolution, but ultimately there could be more information received as the process goes. Okay. So second slide, what is a rural plan? So the rural plan, Maple Hill Health has one. It was adopted 2022 by the province and this property question is in the LC of Moncton. So Maple Hills inherited the rural plan that was adopted by the province, and essentially the rural plan is the rules for development. So what is permitted somewhere and what is not permitted somewhere else, and how close you have to be from property lines as such. So that is a rural plan, and there are policies and visions in the rural plan that kind of helps us to guide if we're making a modification to the rural plan, what we should be looking for. So in this case, rezoning is required because the zoning of the property doesn't allow the development. And I'll start by just explaining real quick what is a rezoning. So a rezoning is essentially changing what is permitted on the property. So something that wasn't permitted in terms of development. And the role of council for rezoning, your role is either accept or not for rezoning. So ultimately you are the decider for a rezoning. And you also have the option to add conditions. So there is the opportunity to add conditions. So typically staff and the plan review and adjustment committee will propose conditions, but the council is can either remove or add some also. The role of staff, me and Eve, is just ensuring that the process is respected. We deal with the administrative process and we provide opinion and recommendation to council if you have any questions. So for rezoning, the citizens will be invited to participate also. So their role is only during the public hearing. So they'll be invited to comment and let them know their objection or comments or express what they think about the project. So they will be part of the process of the rezone. Okay, so we're done the procedural parts. We're at the slide 4, which is a proposal. So the proposal is to zone 2 properties and a portion of a 3rd property to the existing zoning conservation zone to the intensive resource development zone. And the intent is to expand an existing gravel pit and rock quarry. So in the map, we see in gray the map and the properties in question subject to the zone. Slides of where we're at. I believe you all know the location on Lord's Road, but it's just north of the city of Moncton, the former LC of Moncton. It's about 500 meters from the limit of the city of Moncton. On Lord's Road, we'll see other view later. It's going to get better to sight. A bit of background. So this quarry was subject to a rezoning in 2007, which was an expansion at that time. And then in 2007, they anticipated that the expansion that they did at that time would be enough to answer for the next 40 years. But after COVID, we had quite a construction boom, and they judge now that they only have about 5 to 10 years left in the existing quarry before they ran out of aggregates. So in the 2007 rezoning, as part of a condition, there was this a few pieces of property left as conservation zone for the purpose of mitigating dust and also for the purpose of protecting the viewscape. So and now in order to expand their quarry, they want to rezone this section in order to be able to exploit it. So if I did a background. 7 slides, but this is just some context to show you where we're at and what the property physically looks like. So the property in question is in red, and we see Modern Resource, which is the applicant, is at the left. So that's kind of their operation, and they want to carry that over through the red section. And on the bottom, that's also owned by Modern Resources. That's an asphalt plant, and to the right. Tri-Guild Paving and Construction, that is rock quarries and gravel pits too. So we see in the surrounding areas, it's mostly predominantly similar activities happening close to this property. So we just have this conservation buffer in the middle, completely surrounded by existing quarries and activities. So this is, the next one is the existing zoning, so this is just to show the existing zoning maps of what's permitted where. So the zoning being proposed today is the brown one, priority zone. That's the property in question is in red. So this is just to show what is permitted around the property. I'll just note that there's a water protection zone about a kilometer further away for the Clocken Reservoir. So that is a zone also administered by the environment and completely out of the zone. There's also agricultural land about 1 kilometer away from the property in question. That's the darker green. The lighter green is the rural area zone. So that zone is allows residential rural use such as agriculture and a bit of commercial. So we'll see there's a bit of rural area zone abutting the property in question, but most of it is a bit further. Talk about the proposal, and again, highlighted in red is the property. So modern construction already operates, so they want to continue their operation. They just want to get a hold of the aggregates in the piece of property that is highlighted. So they want, essentially what they do, they blast rocks, they crush rocks, they burn it on another site to process it. It's order to service the greater Moncton, either for riprap or for road construction or foundation and stuff like that. So it's a resource development. Part of a quarry is quite, there's some standards and regulation that we have to follow with the Department of Environment. It's called the approval to operate, and they have a specific department of that. And the role of that department is really to look at things such as dust, noise, and the impact of the blastings and stuff like that. So in terms of those details, mitigating dust, noise, security, those are all administered by the Department of Environment through a very specific permitting process. They actually go on site and make the inspection. And council's role today is really just to decide if this property is appropriate for a quarry in terms of zone permits. So in terms of putting conditions related to dust, it's very hard to administer through municipal regulation. That's usually the Department of Environment that would do something like that. So on a side note, the way they administer dust is they actually obligate drivers season to water the roads to keep the dust down. So there are a certain mechanism to make sure that that is. So I mentioned the operator will use the existing access, and they also informed us that the volume of the operation will not change, but this doesn't change the intensity of the activity. So the amount of truck going in and out will remain the same. It'll just give them access to more resource, more aggregates to future-proof them. That's an important part. So the actual intensity of the activity will not accelerate if you do have access to this aggregate. The next slide, overview of project detail. Just want to highlight a few other things. So they don't stockpile aggregates on site. They bring it off site to process it. They will have a fence around the property for security measures. And they do get the rezoning. We tend to cut the trees and use the topsoil and not waste anything. So they'll kind of use all the resources on the property. And they're already approved by the Department of Environment through the approval to operate, or we exceed or meet the minimum requirements for environments. And the annual volume of material will not increase. Like as mentioned, traffic caused by trucks will not increase also. And by having access to this site will increase the life expectancy, I guess, of the quarry about 25 to 30 years. So now 5 to 10, and this will give them about another 30 years of aggregates for a given. And I'm just going to point out a few policies here. So there are policies and plans speaking about natural resources, and it highlights that it's a key economic driver for rural communities. So it is the foundation of the rural communities, things such as quarries. In the rural, there's access to a lot of resources, whether it's agriculture, quarries, or other things. So this is very important for the rural. But it also recognizes that quarries are very in intensive use with potentially a lot of negative impacts. So the rural plan does not have any property free zones for the quarry. Anytime we find the right zoning for the quarry is area where they're already property. So anytime someone wants to bring in new quarry in Maple Hills, they have to go through the rezone. So just to highlight that rezoning are case by case basis, ultimately it will be council to decide whether to approve or not or rezoning. And just to make sure to look after things such as the impact of neighboring properties. It is intensive, so what are the impacts from those does center? And again, those can all be mitigated through the process that department. And next slide is called the proximity to residents. So I just kind of want to highlight how close we are from homes here. At the west, there's some existing houses at about 300 meters. To the north, the closest house is about 900 meters, right to the south, about 850 meters. I'll just note that the one to the north and the south, the fact that allowing this quarry does not change the fact that they are already a certain distance from existing quarries, and just the one to the west that technically they would have a quarry closer to them with this free zone does get approved. So the one that are 300 meters would probably be the one closest to this property where it could be potentially impacted. So the next photo, just to give you some photos and Google Street View to just give you an idea of what it looks like. I believe you probably already know the site. Yeah, it's process routes. Then our final section tonight, I'm just going to summarize consultation that we did. So our rezoning, we have to consult with provincial departments, and we started this consultation in October. So we give them a certain amount of time to answer. We did send out emails to a lot of provincial departments, and not all of them answered. So I was going to highlight the important and the one that answered. So natural resources, I just quoted them here in the presentation. So they mentioned that in the property, it's very likely that there's wildlife species in those woods. So something to keep in mind. And they also highlighted that this corridor is a potential corridor for future natural gas or oil products in the area. So I think they just have a certain corridor identified based on the type of soil there is, and you didn't really give up more information that the sentence here. We contacted the agriculture department too, but they did not respond to any of our requests for comments. So we assumed they had no comments on the request. We consulted with the Department of Transportation. Also, they did not respond to our request for comments, but they do have mappings of the street and the street conditions, and they say that their streets, this street in particular was classified as good. It's just the best category for students. And for agriculture properties, some agriculture use being used for farming or over closer to longer away. So significant amount of distance away. Now, consultation for Department of Environment and Local Government. So they several departments did reply to our request for comments. First, the environmental impact assessment branch, which usually when you have a certain scale project, they'll trigger what's called EIAs, like the environmental review. In this case, they deemed that an EIA was not necessary, it was an existing quarry operating, so that study was not necessary. And they did identify a water course on the property, but the water course is simply where they've dug and water has accumulated, because a certain area of water has accumulated on the property is now considered as a water course. So any work close to this body of water will need a permit from the environment. So they just highlighted that, which I believe that process they're underway doing. And the person specific to wells did highlight that there is a big concern in the area about wells getting dry and or water turning brownish after blasting operation. And that all that information was according to complainants, and the claiming the source of this discoloration of water is from blasting. Okay. For consideration, that being said, we split that email with regard to wells to the authorization branch. They are the one that treat the approval to operate. What I mentioned earlier, the specific process with Department of Environment. And in light of what was said from the environment in regards to the well, they said that if this quarry were to be expanded, that they would need to reissue that approval to operate and take into consideration the potential impacts on the well from the blast. So the environment did note this and said that they would need to reissue their permits and view it just to see if there's anything that can be done in regards to that comment about the wells. So that summarizes a bit what we got from our consultation. And if council does want to proceed with the rezoning, the minimum requirement under the Community Planning Act is notifying the neighboring property owners with a radius of 100 meters. And there will also be at a minimum one ad in on the Maple Hills website. If you decide to go beyond, above and beyond, that's up for discussing. And finally, I just want to summarize the process. So if you do want to go ahead and with the following step of the rezoning, not committing to an approval or anything, what that will entail is tonight we'll take a resolution to seek the views from the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee. So that means that you will have a professional recommendation from an advisory committee that's supposed to be objective presented to you on whether you should approve or deny the rezoning. So we'll have that recommendation to back up your decision, and they will also propose that conditions as part of that recommendation. Okay, so that's a recommendation. You can either decide to accept the recommendation, add condition, remove conditions, or not follow the recommendation, and ultimately you will decide. Just recommendation. And also part of the process, public hearing will need to be held. So usually at the town hall, and I will be making a presentation, just answering to general questions from the public. Do you have any? So here's the timeline. So February 28th would be when we would receive the recommendation, and March 20th would be when the public hearing would be held. And notices would be sent out 3 weeks before the public hearing. Then also, if you do decide to go forward with the rezoning, they have to do a total of 3 readings. You can do all 3 readings at the same meeting. So as soon as this rezoning could be adopted April 17th, if you do want to entertain it. So that summarizes my presentation, and I have to answer any questions that we've had. But just
so thank you, Phil, for presentation. Stated, highlighted the process. Phil went through the application at the last committee of the whole meeting. Questions about the notice, the area that were covered. Obviously, Phil discussed what the minimum requirements were. We always recommend, and we also publish in a daily, certainly newspaper area. We would also post the presentation on our website along with the notice as well. So residents are aware actually what the rezoning application of the you asked, or I said I would get the information in terms of maybe potentially expanding catchment area. Currently, out of the 100-meter buffer, there's about 33 PIDs. It would fall into that, and it would double to 250 meter. Around 68 PIDs, and then up to a 500-meter buffer, it would be about 125 PIDs. Some of them are obviously owned by more than one, the same individual, so it wouldn't say either to more than one individual. But you know, if council will want to expand the search area for this because of it being the first, and they want to make sure that they cast a larger net, they could do so. I obviously would say I would exercise caution as well, for this to not become the norm for all zonings, because it can become very expensive in the cost incurred based on the fees that are fixed. That we should essentially be costing us more than the revenue than we bring. You know, depending on the rezoning, it can be revisited, but those are the numbers that.
Further question?
Or, the resolution as well. I have multiple questions for you. First off, you mentioned that the specific area was set for also to help with dust control and escape. What is the plan to solve that issue in the system? They want to get rid of this area and use it for.
Yeah.
What's the plan for them? Is there an issue before what's done?
Yeah, I mean, it was to first start with the dust, it was to help to mitigate with the dust. But as I mentioned, it's part of the approval to operate with the Department of Environment, their own permitting process. They do make sure that the dust created is not too much of a nuisance. So sometimes in the year, they'll have to water the roads to bring the dust down. And the reality is the existing context is completely surrounded by existing quarters and pits too. It is an intensive use development and it will create dust. We're not going to say it's not. But the amount of dust will definitely, it's likely that it will increase as part of this. For the final point, for the viewscape, so the viewscape, what that means is essentially if you're far away, let's say the mountain, and you're looking at the mountain, well, we're seeing trees, not a big hole. So as part of Genfec's analysis, they did include at the very end of the report that is submitted, kind of if you're at different points, as you can see on the map, at Hammond Road, etc. If you're on the street and looking towards the pits, what do you see? But as per your sight lines, we'll be prepared to sell a report in according to their conclusion and based on the point that it shows on Hammond Road and other places, the fact that we're digging a hole and all the grading topography is there, that there's no viewscape that will be lost according to this.
So they look specifically at the road, of course, they're looking straight up the hill.
Yeah,
How far back did they? Is it just along the road?
yeah, and would be probably the first that it went back, you didn't go about the mountain and everything.
As far as well concerns. So obviously this is, they are one of the most extensive quarries around. Okay, one of them is before. Who is responsible if all of a sudden residents nearby, they catch a name, residents, are they responsible to mitigate the shooting distance?
Would be responsible if there's damages to the well.
They catch a name. And that other wells will.
Yeah, I would assume it would be a legal matter because the exact details of who would be responsible, I guess it depends on the exact situation. To be 100% honest with you, I don't know that exact answer. I'd rather not give you false information, but it's something that we can definitely follow up on.
Now, looking at the location itself, the pictures, looking at the pictures of the properties.
Mhm.
Now, they're requesting this one specific area that is part of this conservation area. But included what's already in the island. There's lots of area there, so why are they specifically at this one and not using the name of the road?
Why specifically the area? Well, according to them, it's based on the amount of appropriate aggregate remaining that's exploitable. So they're claiming that they're at the end of their life expectancy of the existing quarry, and this would allow them to dig further in the mountain to get more rock. So I don't know how to answer more than.
Okay, I guess my thoughts on that. Just to understand this is for down the road.
Yes.
The portion that they're actually pulling from as the quarry, it's. They have significant. away from the filter.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll just note that Diagri is very area specific, so you can't just extract rock from anywhere and
they've done-
where rock is, yeah.
and they-
What are they? I would assume that if they could do the equivalent on the area, what would have, they already have, they would. And there's a reason why they didn't want to spend it.
Right, now, as a counselor. Right. When you take away from area that's conservation zone or whatnot.
Mhm.
What is the intention? What can be done for them to then add? Conservation, so much of add back into.
Reclamation.
Yes,
As a condition,
like the clear cut or something like that, they have to plan. They have to. Just taking from the conservation zone. Without giving something back to one that's.
yeah, I mean, their council is allowed to make. To put conditions on a project, like that last one of the conditions essentially were that certain conservation zone be preserved. It's maybe something, if the council interested, is a discussion we could have with the proponent, see if they're open to some kind of exchange, but
And the end of it there. It's referring to, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, Gerard Sumas.
yeah, that's the name of the.
It said, sorry, it's comments. What is his comments specifically? So that's, trying to find that here.
Yeah, it's, I don't, if I put into the report, but I did put it in the presentation, is the exact quote of his comments.
Okay, so it was just what was in.
I can read it out loud again if you wish the exact comments that you've also.
His exact comments, yes.
Yeah, there's a big concern in the area with water wells getting dry and or water turning brownish after blasting operation. According to complainants, the blasting operation might be the source of their water.
After, you may not know this. After the blast, how long, Jim? Is the water?
I don't know. What's it?
I'm good for now.
So,
Yep, one of the things that we talked about was expanding the area. I understand what he was mentioning, where it's, you know, we don't want to make a habit of making it a large area. I think this one kind of maybe exceeds that, because this is kind of a property that's in the middle of so much of their own property, where, you know, you're getting to 900 meters before you hit the first place going north, and it's 850 before you hit the first place going south. I would, in this scenario, I'd be more looking at probably like 1,000 or so. You're not gonna get a whole lot of houses, but I think in that situation, at least you'll get a couple more. Like I think going down Briggs Road, you're probably only gonna gain.
The trade seems to double every time.
But
Every time we double the numbers.
Yeah.
We seem to double in.
well, I'm just on it. So yeah, I'm just saying the actual people that are living in the houses, it looks like you'd only really gain. I guess Ammon Road can gain a lot of houses. Maybe, but Briggs Crossroad and stuff, I think you'd only gain, you know, maybe 30 houses. What I can, looking at just using a basic, trying to measure this. I think giving those people more room is that I don't think it should be the norm every time. But I think this is a kind of special situation where it's dead set into their own property. We keep it to like the even 300 or something like that, or 500, you're really not going to gain a whole lot of. So the only people you're going to gain are some on Briggs Road, but you won't get into the north or the south. Obviously, those are going to be impacted pretty heavily also. And say, yeah, I understand where Councilor Mark is coming from, but that they do have areas that have not been touched yet, but once again, I think this is seeing the growth of Moncton and the surrounding areas with everything over the last couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of what they do already have is, seems like they say, kind of gone in 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years at most. So I can understand why they would kind of want to do this, but.
Like I have a few like comments and questions, but it's probably premature in this setting. So I'd be interested in, hearing the committee meeting in February before bringing up my comments and questions. Most of them would relate more to conditions, which is way too premature to bring up at this point. But I'd be interested in the process and the steps that we
Good. So if you want to communicate your preliminary concerns too, it helps me just to make sure that things are addressed. If you want, it's up to you to decide.
Well, like, it's really gonna depend on this report,
Mhm.
I think. It's probably the conditions. I don't want, I just not knowing a lot about this. It already is an existing quarry.
Mhm.
It's already happening. It's basically neighboring it. It's not happening now, it's happening when they need it.
Mhm.
So it's not a new thing. And so it is somewhat business as usual for what's happening. However, we have had those complaints in the past and dust in certain areas. So my only just, off the top condition would be that there is a process for if there are complaints that they'd be willing, modern would be willing to hear it in a formal way that would have some teeth, where there would be an outlet for residents to actually have rules. And just kind of off the top, without having more consultation and seeing this report, that's kind of the thing that came to mind, is just, they can't be silenced if something's going on.
Yeah, Council said, is speaking to a resident very nearby, that they've actually come out and put devices in the ground because they're having issue with. Last thing they've complained, the do glass window shape, where they've come out and said that there's certain areas that are allowed. Should install out, but, and it's always within that range. I like the idea of what he said, something that had teeth, because the residents that I spoke to, each time they complain about the situation that's happening, they've made it very clear that it's not like it's where they are house shaking, window shaking. They come out, they check the device, it's within the range that they are on. So definitely with that. This indication. I don't think it's necessary for all of us to be to some extent, but when it comes to taking a chunk out of Maple Hills, essentially, with their expanding the radius, would you happen to know if this is approved? Are they planning to start cutting in on the section immediately, specifically, or are they planning on leaving that to?
I don't know those details.
Yeah. Now, while you're here, I'm gonna ask a very quick question on this. Consider. Yes, it is. So what would you consider to be your experiencing as something sort of, what would we consider to impact on the neighborhood property? You mentioned in this process, so what specifically?
Just noise, the impacts, the general impacts of blasting, which seems, according to what we've heard, that there seems to be already. So of course, that when we're considering quarry, we try to minimize their impacts and try to put them where those are absolutely eliminated, because they are high impact uses. Yes. But those will be the general impact we see. Also things such as just heavy traffic, just from all the trucks. So those on top of my head would be the ones.
And is it possible for the police to go up? For them, for it to be rechecked from further distance? Because obviously if you're sitting there looking up a hill, you're not gonna see a hole if you're a kilometer back and we're looking at Maple Hills, it's nice.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, there's steep hills.
to be honest, we've started the analysis ourselves. We've had the same question. It's just something that takes time and we haven't had results yet, but.
Do you have an expectation?
No, hopefully we'll have all that information before next time that we present it. So we absolutely should.
Okay.
So, I would just say that I kind of agree with Mark, Councilor Esty, in that to some degree it appears to, it's going to be business as usual to some extent. I do have a lot of concerns about the water. If it's already a problem, is it gonna be aggravating or by there not being a section in there? So I would like, you know, as part of this process, for there to be a lot more detail about what the expected impacts might be. Is this conservation zone actually retaining some, you know, veins that are gonna be damaged? So that we understand, because to me, water is the biggest, like, the other incidentals, the people that live in that area are already dealing with them. I wanna avoid us. I want to avoid this being a NIMBY situation where we want the roads fixed, we want more roads built, but we don't want you to take the stuff from us to do it, but I also don't want to hear that somebody doesn't have a well anymore. Or it's not usable anymore as a result. So I think, to me, the water's the biggest concern. And I like the idea, because I actually was thinking, talking about that in the exhausted areas. Eventually, that entire area will be exhausted. What is the, you know, what's their plan? Just to leave that giant with layer and put a fence around it, and that's what we have forever? Or, you know, since they're hauling out topsoil anyway, could they maybe fill some of it back in and plant some more trees where they're done? Like, are those options? Because right now it's a functioning business and there's big sources out of there, but at some point it is just gonna be that they'll have nothing left to do with it, and then what is it? So what's the word?
Just from coming from like a construction background before, you could never fill anything with topsoil. It just, that's.
Well, sorry, I understand that they have to put some other fill in there, saying if they have topsoil to get rid of, could they build it back up and maybe put the topsoil on top of plants and trees, because
Yeah.
we're gonna be left with a giant crater.
I think that would be more, probably subcontract that to sold.
Sure, but is it an option, or is it so deep?
Yeah.
So, you know, so poorly, there's nothing left there.
Yeah, no, fine. I was just, I used to do all that stuff, so I just, some people think you just take the topsoil and just throw it in and it'll fill, but.
No, I'm sure you. So yeah, I guess to me, water's the biggest thing. I don't want to ever be the reason somebody is water. I think we have.
Yeah, it's just, again, thank you, Phil, for time. You know, obviously this is an education part for council as well. It's the first one, and, you know, obviously I think you'll appreciate that they actually did their homework and they're taking the matter with the seriousness that it deserves. You know, I've gone through numerous rezonings. This is not my first one, but I will say that today I saw first and I had questions that were well thought of that made me reflect as well. I've seen developments like these in other municipalities that I've worked for, but the question never came out at the end of life. Was there a reclamation of the land? And, you know, when there's no more aggregate, when there's no more resources, what happens to the land? So I think it bears research with the department. If there are any mitigation, closing out factors, if there's standards when, you know, I understand you might not know if there is, but, you know, I'd be curious that we're just mining out of sight, reclamation of the land to bring it to a certain, you know, habitable area for wildlife or, you know, something of that nature. I think the only question that I have is on the expanded list that you sent me. I started seeing a lot of Moncton addresses. I'm just curious, were they in the boundaries or was there a separation of the ones that are in the boundaries of Maple Hills, were they removed or like, was that one of the filters at the GIS?
I guess the property is about 500 meters from Moncton, more or less, and the third option had a buffer at 500 meters, so we must be pretty close from starting to.
Yeah, because I saw on the list that you sent me, I saw some Moncton addresses.
Yeah.
I didn't check them on the,
So,
on the planet, but
so probably what happens, city limits like here.
Yeah.
It probably captured.
yeah. So, again, we're only talking about 130 some odd PIDs, but you know, I just want to, the question is, the list that I sent, were the Moncton ones filtered out?
No, they would not.
If the number, okay. You know, obviously, yes, it's for Maple Hills, but the letter will probably be sent to people outside of the boundaries, so just wants to.
Then,
One last thing, so the quote here from Natural Resources Commission about talking about, here is very likely to be by wildlife species under the refuge corridor. Is that just a quote from someone who works there, or is that part of the study? So,
Just a neat quote from an email that said,
has there been a study on that one?
no,
I would think it would be limited because there's already a fence there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm wondering, if they do want to come in. There, they say upstairs.
Yeah, but I'm thinking there is a chain link fence. Well, I think it's down. So,
And then ways of activity, they don't usually,
all of the vegetation would have some dust on.
yeah.
Don't, I would suspect there'd be a ton of deer traffic or moose traffic. Now, birds maybe, I guess, but you're right, that thing. Turn. All right, anything else, guys? Do we-
So ultimately, council needs to decide what next steps would come from the application. You know, staff, I would always recommend to get the opinion of policy adjustment committee for, so we can make an educated decision on facts to the application. And if you so decide to do so, the motion that's presented in the package is what we would recommend that be read. And
So are we good with reading to the next step?
Right,
Shoots along.
I'll take it, break alarms. Okay, whereas council received a request from Gemtech on behalf of water construction for rezoning for properties located on George Road, bearing PI 011-058 with 2, 094 4983 and 703 99 571 from the conservation zone to the intensive resource development zone. To permit the expansion of existing gravel pit. Whereas the council wishes to consider the above mentioned modifications. Be it resolved, a bylaw, world plan. Left it. The clerk in name on behalf of council will publish public notification with section 111 of the Community Planning Act. See the hearing of objections to proposed bylaw is set for March 20th, 2024. The council chambers located in Dean Hall, Irish Town Community Center, 2603 Route 115, Irish Town, New Brunswick, at 6:30 p.m. The clerk, name, and on behalf of council, we request the opinion of Southeast Regional Service Commission with an extension to February 26, 2024 on the proposed bylaw conforming with section 110 of the Community Planning Act. And B, the proposed bylaw available for consultation by the public at the municipal building during operation hours from the date the first notice.
Okay, Do we have a number? Oh, sorry, I mean, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Are we ready for the question?
First,
We'll now proceed to vote. All those in favor of adopting the word. That Deputy Mayor Martin just read, show your consent by saying yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Carry. Right.
So thank you, Phil. You want to stay, more than welcome. And if you have another meeting to get to, you understand as well. So,
Oh, wait, wait, sorry. Bob on Facebook now.
So the next topic on the agenda is appointment of deputy mayor. Last year, we have just completed our first calendar year as a municipality. Our procedural bylaw says that at the first meeting, well, that the council will elect the deputy mayor, after which it shall elect a deputy mayor every year at the June regular meeting, or as unanimously decided by council, term of office of deputy mayor may be renewable. Under this section, obviously, elections are generally held during the May timeframe, meaning that you're serving a full 4-year term. The first appointment is done, council's first elected, and then every year in June. Obviously, the elections were held in November, council started in January. I think the intent is to appoint a deputy mayor on an annual basis. So this would be the time that after the 1 year that could and should appoint another deputy minister or.
So, Councilor John Roth not here today, but he had a nomination and asked anything of the nomination. And we'll his nomination. So, Councilor John Roth wishes to nominate or Deputy Mayor Martin. Councilor Martin has shown tremendous spirit in his role as Deputy Mayor, from attending all responsibilities outside of council to providing leadership to the community. There's an ice rink in our front yard that wouldn't be there without him. On council issues, he's displayed calm and wisdom, patience and perseverance beyond what his age should allow. We are blessed to have two leaders who work so effectively and harmoniously to get things done in our growing municipality. In that vein, I would like to take this occasion to nominate Councillor Martin to a second term as deputy mayor. Councillor David John Brown, Ward 1. Back here again tonight. So do we have any other nominations?
There would still be a vote to ratify the nomination, so. Yep.
So I moved, whereas Article 5 2B of the procedural bylaw states that a council must elect by resolution a deputy mayor for a period of 1 year. Be resolved that the Maple Hills Council appoints Councillor Chad Martin as deputy mayor for a period of 1 year.
So. You accept the nomination? Oh, sir.
I accept, thank you very much. Thank you. Councilor Tondra?
I wasn't getting all lovey dovey and getting my brief, so.
Do we have a seconder for this motion? All right, are we ready for the question? We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of re-electing Deputy Mayor Martin for a second term, show your consent by saying yes. All opposed, no. Motion carried. Say yes to it.
I was gonna say, we should probably make sure that, Councilor getting rid of some emails on that. That's what he's.
Well, I did reply and he said, okay, so, but yeah, I guess some principal didn't reply to that.
We'll see. Questions.
You guys didn't oppose it, so I mean, so they're gonna happen, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next item on the agenda, municipal capital borrowing. Board.
So we have, as I presented at the committee of the whole meeting, we received, ministerial orders for funding to complete the project and retrofit offices. Obviously, that gives us need to find a way to finance those, pay for those, so the ministerial order permits us to acquire short-term financing. Once the project's completed, then convert that into a long-term venture or paid for over a period of years. So there's two recommended motions to read for the two ministerial orders that were received. There's also a third junior packages to complete the acquisition that you need to be so.
So,
Questions?
do we have any questions? We coming to all the committee. So, hey, do we want to move first one?
Be resolved that council request interim financial for ministerial approval number 23-4432 for the general government service for a period of 2 years. We need financial corporation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Questions?
Question.
Want to proceed with the vote? All those in favor of the such the vote just read. Show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Okay. Okay, so do we have a mover for the second?
Council request financing for ministerial approval number 23-4431 to general government service and recreation and cultural service for a period of 2 years of union financial.
Do we have a seconder?
Seconds.
Are we ready for the question?
Questions?
We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of the second motion by Councilor Savoy just read, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carried.
One thing, you hit Mark, seconded first one, is me.
Oh, actually, it was both of you and I said.
Oh, sorry. What did you say, dude? Okay, perfect. Never mind.
All right.
I can change it to murder.
No, you put back to that's just mine. I just didn't hear.
That's what.
So, and on the third motion.
Be resolved that council authorizes the payment related to the acquisition of the multipurpose community building to McIntyre Finn for the amount not exceeding $79,556.68 plus adjustments.
I have a seconder.
So,
Are we ready for the question?
question.
We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of the motion read by Deputy Mayor Ryan, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carried. The next topic is future meeting.
Yeah, so the last topic on the agenda, future meetings, I believe we've done this resolution a few times, hoping that we've already moved into the our procedural bylaw extension says that our meeting is held on the second Wednesday, Tuesday of every month. Sorry, our third Tuesday of the month. Yes, third Tuesday, I apologize. And because of trying to work around the schedule with the Irishtown Community Center to not hurt their programming and them generating revenue during those nights. Wednesdays is the night that they look for council meetings in the hall. So we would essentially need a motion to cancel the meetings in February, March and April. I believe we're saying May as well. Yes, May and June. So we would basically cancel as per the act, and then we would just reschedule on the third Wednesday of those months. So we ultimately not hold it on the third Tuesday, it would be on the third Wednesday. Obviously, once we are housed into our new offices, we can obviously keep those dates, or we can motion to revert those changes if we so those dates. So, are there any questions?
Have a mover on this?
I'll move. Be it resolved that the regular monthly meetings of council for the months of February, March, April, May, and June be canceled as prescribed in Article 5 for A, of bylaw A-01, bylaw pertaining to the procedure of council meetings of the Maple Hills rural community. And be it further resolved, the council have regular meetings for the months of February, March, April, May, and June on the third Wednesdays of each month at 6:30 p.m.
Question? Secret votes. All those in favor of the resolution read by Councilor Murray moving the meeting, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Do we have any unfinished business, Mr. CAO?
We do not. Perfect.
Now take a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thanks, guys. Meeting adjourned.